morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Hello and good morning. Well, as we all know, later today, East End gangland criminal Reggie Kray will be buried alongside his brothers Ronnie and Charlie in Chingford. It's likely to be a bigger and a more flamboyant funeral than Ronnie Krays was 5 years ago. But why did so many people line the streets and cheer as Ronnie Kray's coffin went by, as they probably will do again later on today? So why are we glamorising common criminals? Why are we, Eileen?
Common criminals.
Well, what else are
Ronnie and Reggie were the most glamorous men I've ever seen in my life.
They were common criminals.
I don't care about that. When the first time I ever saw them, I was in the Miss World contest. I could not believe how glamorous they were. It was quite a while ago, yes. But that doesn't matter.
That was very unchivalrous,
Bernie.
It was ungentlemanly, that.
They were very glamorous and they were immaculately turned out, beautifully mannered. I've never forgotten them, and all over the years I've sort of kept in contact with them. And that's
You met them when you were Miss United Kingdom?
Yes, I was in the Miss World contest and I've kept in touch with them. I used to sort of mix socially with them. And I've always been impressed by
Why would you want to mix socially with common criminals?
But they weren't common criminals.
But they
I mean,
were.
I thought Hollywood had hit town. You've only got to see... When they came through the door, I honestly thought Hollywood had hit town. OK, in Ronnie's case, it was a touch of the Al Capones, but we won't go into that. But they were Hollywood. They were definitely Hollywood.
That's what's relevant,
They've always been
won't
Hollywood.
go into, the
and
Al
that's why,
Capones.
when I go to the funeral later on this afternoon, I will step out of a 12-seater stretch limo for Reggie's sake, because if Reggie's looking for me up there or down wherever...
This is the stretch limo we've got on the screen. This is what the thing you're hiring for the funeral this afternoon.
That is my favourite stretch limo. Reggie would approve of that, and when I get out of that, I'm bringing Reggie in death what he loved in life and what you would see more of if he hadn't been incarcerated for over 30 years.
What are you bringing him in death?
I'm bringing him the glamour that he loved. He loved glamour. He epitomised glamour.
You'll be bringing a big wreath as well?
I will, yes. I will not tell you the words, but the words will tell the world what I thought of the man. And
what did you think of him?
I thought he was marvellous. I thought he was the epitome of style and glamour, and absolutely marvellous. And when he got older, he was a very sensitive man, and he writes poetry. He wrote, I'm awfully sorry, but I still feel he's with us.
They tortured people, they extorted money from people, they intimidated people, they frightened people.
Reggie had a twin brother who was slightly unbalanced, we know that. Ronnie was the stronger half of the two in that...
Do you think they're glamorous?
He was emotionally involved with him.
I've never heard so much rubbish in my life. The Krays was murderers, they was gangsters. You name it, they were. Whatever they was. I have lived in Tower Hamlets all my life, Bethnal Green. I live just 7 minutes, 8 minutes drive from them now. I used to work for a firm where we used to sit outside their house and see the goings-on in Mellons Road where the mum lived and brought them up. These are criminals. The people today, the media, television, newspapers, and the people like yourself and others around you, they just go there. I'll give you an instance, if I may. When the younger brother was buried on that particular day, it was in, as you know, coming down from Bethnal Green Road, and the police stopped all the traffic. I had to go to the bank up in Bethnal Green on the corner there, an office, because the police were stopping the traffic. I had to walk up there and coming back. And when I come back, getting in there was lying 3, 4, 5 deep on the curb. And as I come along, I spotted my young sister, and I tapped her on the shoulder and I said, "What are you doing here, Reen? Haven't you got anything better to do than stand here and watch this?" "Oh, no, I must see this." I said, "What are you waiting for?" She said, "I'm waiting to see all the film stars."
Style and glamour is never outdated. That's why we carried it on for them. We don't care about the scruffy yobbos of today.
Can I tell you, if I may, I live 7 minutes walk from the Blind Beggars. I detest having to live behind Blind Beggars. OK, there's new owners passed on and on and on. I live there, bred and born in Tower Hamlets, and I want there. No, I don't have to leave. I'm not a gangster. I'm not a criminal. I've been brought up the way to respect people, and I respect the police very much. And yes, I know. And I'll tell you what, I believe the police officer, Nipper, who actually done Nipper Reid, I reckon he should have been made a knight.
Hang on, Tommy.
Not the people who get the knights today.
Robert, my dad knew them a lot of years ago. Now, if the crime you got now, you would not have had them days, and you wouldn't have... You cannot walk up Whitechapel no more. It's dangerous.
So
you can't.
Did you think they were glamorous?
Put it this way, if they've been here now, You would not
Well,
have
that's a
had...
separate question. We'll come on to that. We'll come on to whether the streets are safer or not. I know Tommy's got some views on that.
Glamorised them.
Have we glamorised them?
I don't think they're glamorising. Admittedly, they did 2 things wrong. But as my stepdad says, they were scallywags.
But why do we make so much of a fuss? Why she's talking about glamorising? Why is he saying that his sister goes there to kind of see them and treat them like film stars as if they're sports idols? They'll get more attention than our Olympic athletes.
Robert, the way it was in them days, when they had the clubs and all that, it was about that. It was about a lot of clubs in them days. Barbara Windsor was there, all other people used to go there. That's just the way it was
We've
in
got
them
pictures
days.
of them with all kinds of people, yeah.
So,
They sought the glamour, obviously. They actually went out seeking people like Barbara Windsor, Joe
yeah, but they
Lewis
did-
and all the rest of it.
that's just the way it was in them days. But what I'm saying is now...
You're wrong.
What is now, Whitechapel now, if they were in Whitechapel now, you would not have the crime like you've got now.
You're right.
The muggings you have now, of nursing staff...
You think they
That's
glamorised them?
drug-related, surely.
I think basically, like when you're looking at the glamorise, who glamorised them in the first place?
Yeah.
You know, I think that was basically a lot to do with the media and the press.
Exactly
Who
right.
brought them to the public's attention. So whether they courted it or or whatever,
That's right.
I think that's where you've got to look at it in the first place, is that they was actually glamorised by the media and the press.
Bernie?
I can't speak for when the Krays were free, but when the Krays were in prison, particularly just before Ronnie had died, well, after he died, I was one of 12 people who was invited into Maidstone prison to make the arrangements for Ronnie's funeral with Reggie in it. And the arrangements they made in that room on that day isn't what happened on the day of that funeral. They didn't glamorise themselves. The only people that glamorised that funeral were the fools,
But
the
they were,
hangers-on,
they were
and
glamorised.
pantomime
They were
gangsters.
glamorised before that, though, Bernie, weren't they? The funeral.
Well, I can't talk
I mean,
about before, but I can talk about the day of that funeral. The only people what turned that thing into a sick circus, because that's what it was. You're talking about a dead man in a box.
And you think it's going to be the same today?
Why do you have guarding a dead man? Why do you have Bouncers guarding Reggie the other week, a 5-stone man dying of cancer?
but you
It
love
wasn't
it,
for...
don't you?
No, I don't love
The
it.
world
I wouldn't
loves
go
it.
to Reggie's funeral because it's
Everybody
sick.
loves it. Otherwise,
It's
why
sick.
do they do it? Why
It's
are they
sick.
there 10 deep?
It's
Why,
sick.
why are the cameramen...
Because they're there to promote themselves.
You can
They're there to
understand. No, but you
promote
can understand
themselves.
why they're there. You can understand why his sister's there. You can understand why a lot of people might go there because they say, OK, this is an event. It might be all the horses and all that. They go to beauty. It's out of curiosity.
No.
And I saw the newsreel. We've just shown a clip of. What I couldn't understand and what you didn't hear in that newsreel was the cheers. Lots of times, loud cheers, not just one or two. And this is people cheering people, individuals who've been put into prison for murder.
Well, what they...
No, I can't get you from there, my friend.
What they were
I'm talking
basically
to Isla in a
cheering, I
minute.
think, at the time, when Reggie was let out to Charlie, his last brother's funeral, Reggie had been incarcerated for 32 years.
I think this
He was
is
being
where-
cheered for
His
that.
victim's been incarcerated for
I
longer.
think this is where you should stop and think. They were glamorised thugs and murderers. They weren't even successful. They didn't die rich people. They spent many years of their lives in prison, and I think they gloried in what they were. And I will tell you a story of how I met one of them. I was leaving the office to have a drink with a colleague, and I was called to the telephone just as we reached the door. By the time I reached the pub, he'd gone. So it was empty. I bought myself a beer. I'd taken a book, and I sat in the corner, and just then a man came through the door. He had Old Leg written all over him. He went to the bar, he ordered a drink, picked up his beer, and came to my table. So I said, "You can sit down." I laugh now, how arrogant I was. And
You pulled.
he said, if your friends knew who I was, they wouldn't want you to have me at your table. I said, when my friends dictate to me, that's the time I'll worry. As long as you behave yourself, you may sit at my table.
And who was it?
It was a hilarious half an hour. He was trying to stop smoking, I was. He talked of the underworld the entire time. He told me about prison.
Who was it?
When I got outside, he said, "You've been so nice. I think I should tell you who I am."
Ronnie Kray.
And I said, "And who are you?" He said, "I'm one of the Kray brothers." And I kept a dead straight face and said, "Who are they? Are they actors?" And he was gobsmacked because
But
I
you're
didn't
still here to tell the
recognise
tale, so he wasn't that much of a criminal, was he? I mean, he
Why?
was. Because I didn't know who he was.
Hang on, Eileen, Tony.
If the
And you
truth be
didn't-
We're talking about
told, if the truth
glamour,
be
right?
told, they weren't very successful criminals,
No,
probably,
but that's not glamour,
probably
is it?
because of the glamour. The minute that they posed for that shot...
Right, the David Bailey, the
Absolutely,
famous
the minute
David
that was
Bailey,
it,
yeah.
fate sealed as
Yeah.
gangsters, basically,
but if they
because
were
everybody
really-
knew who
Eileen,
they
let me
were,
finish.
Sorry.
everybody had a mark there for, you know, when the stories that... There are so many of them. Which town did they go to? Liverpool, Manchester,
Right.
Newcastle, all turned away because everybody knew who they were and reputation preceded them. And, you know, people were ready, people were waiting, and they weren't successful because
They were
of all
playing
of that.
gangsters, that's why you didn't
Playing
realise.
gangsters?
They were
Were
playing
they playing gangsters?
What about
You
also they were?
Ivan, you
I
defended
could
them.
have told
Hang on,
you.
we'll ask a man who defended them 3 times. They were only play acting. They were playing
They were
gangsters,
playing
were
gangsters.
they?
Of course they were. Cashmere coats.
And
Well,
they'd
that
sit up
wasn't
and-
that
Eileen,
wasn't that
please.
wasn't the evidence. The evidence is that they weren't play acting; they were for real. And two thoughts occur to me from having heard the discussion. One is that they just missed capital punishment by 3 years,
Yeah.
and I think that they would have expected to have, when caught, died.
be in home.
Yes, I once asked Ronnie Kray whether he believed in capital punishment, and he said yes. That's one thought that
Hang
occurs
on.
to me.
So your experience and your knowledge as their defending barrister, their brief, is that, and your knowledge of them privately and what have you, is that they had done things which they would have accepted they should have been rightly hung for had hanging been in existence then.
Well, I didn't have any private knowledge of them.
Okay.
They weren't social friends, or I only
No,
saw
but I
them
mean
in
knowledge
a
that didn't
cell.
come into the court.
Yes. No, but I think that they would have thought that they were lucky not to have...
So why are we
been hanged.
glamorising them?
I don't know why people glamorise them. I don't know just to what extent this is a response to the media.
Did
What
the
I do know is that if we're going to glamorise serious criminals, then we're going to encourage a generation of young people who want to commit crime.
I'm quite struck with this, and perhaps it's just a little hobby horse of mine, but I've got 2 obituaries here. It's usually said it's the media. It's been said very many times today it's the media that have glamorised them, and it's usually these kind of newspapers, po-faced, self-righteous newspapers like The Independent and The Guardian. You say, oh, it's all the tabloids, it's the red tops. And here you've got The Independent, right, newspaper, which actually self-righteously said we will never have a picture of the royals on our front pages. And look at that, that's the amount of space they give to a common criminal, Reggie Kray. Enormous amount of space.
Yeah.
More space than they give the next day to one of our most foremost psychiatrists who's done an enormous amount of good, Robin Skinner. The Guardian gives that amount of space to an obituary of Reggie Kray, far more than Howard Winston, who is the featherweight world champion boxer and did a lot of good for charities. What does that say about the Times and the Telegraph? The Times, I gather, said it wouldn't have an obituary, and the Telegraph certainly hasn't produced one, to my knowledge. What does that say about it? What's
Well,
going
what
on
it
here?
shows is the double standards of the media. They pontificate against crime and those who commit it, and then they publish their books.
Lynn?
Robert, I think, you know, everybody's saying the media glamorises them, and I believe they do.
They are there,
But
aren't they? Respectable, so-called. They like to think they're
yes, of course
respectable,
they have.
highbrow
But the
newspapers.
other people that glamorise them is, excuse me, but the people that don't live on this planet...
You're looking at Eileen.
Yes,
I'm not saying
I certainly
you were
am
pointing
looking
the
at
finger
Eileen.
at Eileen.
Yes, I am. You
Didn't
know,
usually do,
wannabe stars like Barbara Windsor and Eileen.
Well, she was a star. She was Miss UK.
5-minute wonder. Every pickpocket and every little thief all of a sudden knew the Krays and were glamorised over it. You know, I don't necessarily think it was the Krays themselves, but every little bad boy in the East End said, I was a runner for the Krays, I did for the Krays, they've written books. They were probably nothing. They're bad criminals. They should have been locked away for life. And I, for one, am glad the last of them is dead, and let's forget them.
Is she talking about you, Tommy? Because part of the glamorising of them is this kind of myth, perhaps it isn't a myth, but seems to be a myth that's been established, that the streets were safer in the East End when they were around. Is that true?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I can only tell you what I know. And I knew Reggie and Ronnie for 40 years. And all this, they searched for stars and it. Important people looked for them.
Why?
Because they did. Show people business looked to be seen with them.
We got one of your pictures, Joe Louis.
Joe Louis, there you go.
World champion.
Yeah.
Why
Barbara
was he with-
Windsor, the wannabe star, Barbara Windsor, you know. Millions of people watch her every day of the week. The wannabe star. Who is her, who isn't on this planet? That's what I want to know. The streets were
You're
safer.
pointing the finger at Lynn now,
Yes,
are you?
I am.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. And the other guy there.
Bill.
The streets were safer.
But were they-
People were safer.
Were they a police force? Were they a private police force?
Ask
or
their
was it just
victims
a-
if the streets were safer. Ask
What
their
victims?
victims.
What victims?
Anybody at the end of a crime
Tell me
is
one
a
of their
victim.
victims, will you, please?
Oh, I don't actually know.
I do.
I work with victims
I do.
every day of my life.
Can you tell me any of the
You're obviously
Krays
one of their
victims,
victims.
please?
John, can
Yeah,
you tell
you're
him?
one of- you're
Hang on,
living-
Tommy.
You've got the three murder cases. You've
Jack
got,
the Hat.
Well, oh, sorry, he's a victim. He was a human being.
He
who
was running
killed.
round the West End, full of drugs and full of booze, with a sawn-off shotgun, looking for those bloody Krays to kill him.
Hey, you're not allowed to say that word!
Sorry, not the bloody Krays.
No, you're not allowed to say that word!
All right,
I am
he's
sorry.
running round for 'em. He's going to murder them both.
He was still a victim. He was a man that was murdered by them.
He was a crazy junkie.
You've got
they
George
got?
Cornell was murdered by them.
So you can take, so somebody else can take it into their mind and decide to just eliminate him, can they?
Yes.
We can forget the rule of law,
Yes,
can we?
no, there is
All
no
right.
rule
And what
of
about if
law.
somebody did that for you then, Tommy?
They
What if
did.
somebody...
They shot me through the head.
Who did?
They shot me. Never mind about who did.
Oh, well, I
They
want to
shot
know
me
who
through the
did.
head.
Well, we don't want that kind of society, do we, Tommy? Where people who have no training, have not been
psycho,
elected by
another-
anybody, take it
another
upon
Jack the Hat
themselves...
shot me.
Hang on a minute. No, you can't. Go on, John.
Right.
Can I just say...
Streets were safe.
Then
Hang
you
on
had
a
the
minute,
other
Tommy.
man.
Hang on a minute. I'm going back to
Then
you.
you had the other gangster, Mr. Cornell. You know, I'm Jack the Lad,
Yeah.
walking round. Ronnie Kray is this and Ronnie Kray is that. And then when he was dealt with,
What do you mean
well.
dealt with? What do you mean dealt with? What
I
did he
mean,
do?
shot in the head like
Oh, he
he
had a
deserved.
quiet word in his ear, like, yeah.
I think
That-
Tommy's read
that's-
too many books.
No one said
No,
that
I
they
haven't
were
read too
robbers.
many books.
It's
They
not-
were friends of mine for 40 years.
not reality.
I sat with them in Parkhurst every
Take
day
it,
of the
Valiant,
week.
calm down.
Every
It's not
day of the
reality.
week.
It's not reality.
They are reality,
It's not
mate.
reality.
It's people like you that are not reality.
Not reality.
Can
They will always be
I
Krays.
just say that I used to head up the flying squad at Scotland Yard, and before that, I
say
was.
no more.
Well, that's all
Say
right,
no
Tommy.
more.
I mean, we
How
did,
much did you earn?
we did a good job on you.
How much did you earn? Hey,
Well, I earned my wages
biggest gang
quite
of crooks I
successfully.
met. You are worse than the Krays. Metropolitan
Well,
Ponces.
after that
Tommy,
tribute...
let him have his say now.
Can I say, I was born and brought up in the East End of London, and my stamping ground was around Roman Road and the pubs around there and so forth. And as a kid, I had never, ever heard of the Krays. So this notion that they were this omnipotent presence throughout the East End of London is total and utter rubbish. They had no influence on crime in the East End of London at all. Nothing whatsoever. I came across them, or I heard about them, after I joined the police service. Yeah, but John... There were dozens of gangs in London in those days, and there's no way that the crime was seen to be at an acceptable level. What you had in London in those days were poor people. They had nothing worth nicking off them. You didn't have drugs. You had more of a family influence. You had probably a more effective police force. You had all those factors were in existence in those days. Yeah, Don't tell me that criminals actually stopped crime in London, because that is the biggest load of nonsense I've ever heard in my life.
But John, Jack the Hat was a criminal. Jack the Hat was a criminal. And what would have happened if it had stabbed
Okay, that's one. Okay, that's one. That's
What
one.
would have happened if Cornell had shot Ronnie Kray?
All right, that's
would
two.
they have got a 30-year recommendation?
Okay, but leave those two alone. You're telling us the streets... Tommy's quite vehement about it, that the streets were safer, that you didn't kind of mug old ladies, you didn't burgle.
No, you didn't.
You didn't rape little
Oh,
kids.
you're telling me there were no burglars in the East End in Bethnal Green in the 60s?
Well,
Come on.
you had a gent
Even,
on
I've
here.
been around a bit. I mean, even I know that's a load of...
Come on, Robert, you had a
cobblers.
guy on here the other...
Oh, but you're telling us they kept order in their manor.
well, they did.
And everybody was so scared of them, nobody burgled, but they did burgle, and they did mug old ladies, and they did
You
rob
had a gent
people.
on here not so long ago. He was an out-and-out burglar.
Who?
Lenny Hamilton.
What, on my programme?
Yeah, on your programme, yeah.
I hope you're not libeling him. So what's
No,
he
I'm
got
not.
to do with it? So what's that got to do?
Well,
so you're saying that it's
no,
it's
but
worth it.
they talk about what Ronnie Kray done to him. I know people that were in the Esmeralda's barn when he said that Ronnie Kray put a poker to him and he done his eye on that. You know, it never happened because Reggie Kray stopped it.
Oh, so he shouldn't have gone to prison either.
Robert,
then?
the bottom,
Well,
Robert,
They
Robert,
all knew what
So
they
that's all a
were.
load of fairy tales. All that stuff.
Well, you know, since you were in there, it was all political, wasn't it? It's all political, Robert.
You cannot compare the 1960s to the year 2000 on crime. You can't. It's a completely different era.
No, but Steve, hang on.
today.
Nobody's. I absolutely accept that. Nobody's making that comparison. Of course, crime has increased in the East End as it has elsewhere, in Birmingham, in Glasgow, Liverpool, Sri Lanka.
Everything's
everywhere.
changed.
But what we're talking about, they're all saying the streets were safe.
Yeah, but the bottom line is in the 1960s, the media coverage is a big thing of this because the media coverage we receive now compared to the 1960s is completely different.
We receive.
Nowadays, I've been watching photographs.
Hang on, what do you mean we? Who are we?
People, general public in Britain. Basically, we can sit now today watching what's going on in Yugoslavia. It's a terrifying sight we're seeing in Yugoslavia now. Now, something that was happening in Yugoslavia in the 1960s, we probably wouldn't have found out within about 7 days. Now we can find out about it within 7 minutes via a satellite link. And that's what I'm trying to say, that because of the media and the way it's changed, we now hear about things a lot more. Right. The Krays, basically, the Kray name sells. Rubbish. The bottom line is, I started off in the past, if you can just give us a second, Bernie. I started off, basically, by selling a lot of merchandise for the Krays. It was a marketable thing. I sold T-shirts, bags, mirrors, that kind of thing. People buy it.
We'll come to that. I want to come on to that in a moment. What we're talking about now is not what you're selling, is whether the streets were safer. Helen, you've been trying to get in between these two a long time.
Streets were safer, much safer. I think nothing of walking home in the dark after a party or something, 2, 3 in the morning. Oh, I don't know, about 18.
You do know how old you were in the 60s. Come on, what do you mean you don't know? Listen to us. No, if you're telling us you've got first-hand evidence, we've got... Yeah.
But
how old were you when you were walking...
About 18, 17, 18, coming home from parties, whatever, with friends or on my own. I think nothing. I wouldn't think that I was going to be attacked.
OK, but was that any different to it would
I
have been...
wouldn't go out at 6 o'clock at night.
No. Of course you wouldn't. No. Of course you wouldn't now. But you might have done the same thing in Liverpool 8. You might have done the same thing in Summer Lane in Birmingham. You might have done the same thing in the Baubles in the 60s.
The area that I knew.
Yeah, but we're not comparing like with like then, are we? These, Tommy and Eileen, are saying they actually made that particular part of London almost a haven for law-abiding citizens.
If they managed to clone the Kray twins years ago and had the Krays in every village, every town, it would have been a safer country, never mind a safer manner.
That's totally ridiculous. The idea that the Krays were some kind of private police force going around the East End of London and knocking on little criminals' doors didn't exist at all. I mean, that's the sort of thing that happens in Northern Ireland nowadays, where somebody goes up with a shotgun and a rifle, and it's not right there, and it certainly wouldn't have been right.
What, the protection rackets and the intimidation?
They were in there frightening people, earning money from these people out of crime.
They ran protection rackets.
No, they didn't.
Can I really agree with the police? Weren't protecting the public, for sure.
Hang on, Bill, I can't, please. Yes, Tommy.
I know Reggie and Ronnie for many, many years. And I know people who opened businesses, small clubs, and the gangs that you're talking about went in there and started breaking things and smashing things. Every Friday, we'll come in here and we'll pick up £50 to insure you. 2 days afterwards, another gang would be in. Break this, break that. Every Friday, we'll come in and we'll pick up 45 or 80 quid or whatever they wanted to protect you. The man's at his wit's end. He phones Reggie and Ronnie. On Friday evening, Reggie and Ronnie are standing in there. There's no violence, there's no guns, there's no noise.
They did it for free, did they? I really agree.
They're standing there and the gangs come in. So where you see, I'm not allowed to say what I'm saying.
Of course you are, Tommy. Let me ask you a simple question then. So where did Reggie and Ronnie get their money from?
Where did they get it from?
They won on the premium bonds, did they?
So what I'm saying, you will hear.
Where did they get the money from?
The gangs came in, and Reggie and Ronnie said, "You do not come near here again. You do never come near here again." And sorry, we didn't know. We're looking after this place.
Where did they get the money from?
I'm trying to tell you if you'll listen.
I am listening, but get to the point, Tommy.
The guy who owned the shop or the club or was only too happy to give them 20 or 30
Yes, a donation.
Yes.
A voluntary. Tommy, listen, I might not have lived in the world you lived in, but I lived in a pretty rough world, and I know what a voluntary donation means. He knows what a voluntary donation means. Come on, Tommy, you know what a voluntary donation means.
Telling you the
Even
truth.
Ivan, like closeted and protected and nurtured as he is, our former Tory Member of Parliament knows what a voluntary donation is. Don't you? Was it safer? What do you mean, no? Well, you were there. You were around,
They
right,
were
Tommy?
glad to
You probably
pay
knew
Reggie
that
and Ronnie. They were glad. They paid them a lot less, and they got a lot
paid
more
him less.
security.
So they got it on the cheap?
Yes.
Oh, right.
And got
So
a lot
there was-
more security.
So they were still criminals, but they were just...
Nobody's denying they were criminals.
Instead of Lynn here having to pay them... having to pay Bernie £20 a week...
She pays me a tenner.
She's paying you a tenner.
That's right.
And that makes you better than him, does
Yes.
it? Of course it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Ivan,
What is good
what's
for
your view on
business?
this, Ivan?
Well,
the streets safer
the
in those
view,
days.
the view that if Ronnie and Reggie had been around today, the streets would have been safer is total nonsense. The reason why the streets aren't safe today is that between 60 and 80% of all crime is committed by people who are on drugs or need drugs, and they weren't around. Drugs weren't around in Ronnie and Reggie's day, and they would have been totally helpless in controlling anything.
That was not the question.
Because the people who burgle and the people who
That
rob
was not the
and the
question.
people who commit nearly all of the crimes today, in London in particular, I can't speak for other parts of the country, do it because they're high on drugs or need them
I agree with you.
in order to be high on drugs.
The question was, were the streets safer in those days?
Yes, but they
were.
And you
they
said-
were. And the reason they
I need to move.
were, when I was young, there were 30 million people in this country. Now there are 65 million people in this country.
You've been busy.
Leave it there, Tommy. I'm coming. I want Tommy is quite convinced. Yes, we all are. There's much more crime around nowadays than there was in then. Of course there are, but it's not just in the East End, it's everywhere
It's a
too.
different
We're
type
actually
of
doing a
crime.
programme on it. Have you been mugged? If you have, give us a call. You know what the number is. Are you afraid to go out because you're afraid of mugging in your area? Were you mugged and did you actually fight back? Did you get hurt? Do you realise now that perhaps you shouldn't have fought back? Or are you somebody who say, I will always fight back and they'll never take anything from me without a fight? Are you a mugger? Really? We'd like to hear from you, especially. Come here and tell us why you've mugged in the past. Phone us now, 0990 100 771. Had a lot of talk, Bernie, about drugs. Ivan just saying the difference between what was happening when Tommy was with the friends of the Krays in the streets is that, yes, crime has escalated, it's increased, it's different, and it's different because it's drugs-based. Is that the
Well, he
case?
was saying if the Krays were here today, and if the Krays were here today, and they tried going in pubs saying, Ronnie and Reggie's here, I'm afraid some 16-year-old kid from Hackney would go in there and blow their heads off. Because they just wouldn't last 5 minutes, you
It's a
know.
different world.
And I really agree with the police, but I do agree with
You've
what
been
they...
involved in this, haven't you?
In?
In
Well, I don't like using the term gang or firm or friends.
then?
We were just associates who ran a lot of nightclub doors, and we got involved in raves and that type of thing. And
what's dealing in drugs?
Well, with the raves comes the drugs. We personally didn't deal in drugs. We just controlled the door. I'm not saying that vindicates us, but we controlled the drugs and we controlled the whole scene. And
when you say control,
well, we say who goes in there, we say who comes out, we say who sells and at what price.
And how do you stop them if I want to go in?
Physically.
You say he's a big bloke. Yeah, he's pretty big.
Well,
he says, I want
big
to
doesn't come into it.
No, it does, because you have to use a bit more physical force.
No, you don't,
you?
because
Okay.
I know
So what is it,
of
guns?
nobodies
Knives?
who've shot people for no reason.
All right, that's what I was asking. So if he's going to kind of use his physical force to get through, you're going to stop him. You're not going to stop him. You're going to stop him with a gun.
He will get stopped.
You had guns?
And they did get stopped. I mean, my partners murdered a man called Kevin Whittaker for no reason at all,
Your
really.
partners murdered him?
And they got murdered themselves in the end, all three of them.
Well, they're the ones who ended up in the Range Rover?
Yeah, they were all shot through the head, yeah. And they deserved it. And all this ethics and morals means nothing to me, because you get on that path and you go down it, and at the end of it, there's misery. There's no glamour. I bought Reggie Kray's shirt for him out of Marks and Spencer's for his brother's funeral. Talk about glamour, do you know what I mean? The man had nothing.
But did you think you were glamorous?
No, not at all.
You didn't think at the time? Were you aware of whatever you were doing of the controlling, the end product of the drugs you were allowing, whether you were actually dealing them, selling them, but you were tolerating, you were allowing them? It was part of your take, presumably.
It's extremely glamorous if you're a little tow rag from an council housing estate, and you've suddenly got a lot of powerful men around you, and you're going in nightclubs and they're going, oh, don't pay, and you go to the bar and they go, don't pay for your drink.
This was you'd have caught. You're the tow rag from the council estate.
All of us were,
so you're the Krays of today, are you?
No, we're not Krays. God forbid I'd even think I'm one of them.
Krays were a product of their time. You are a product of your time. You're not glamorous, they were. That's the difference. You weren't asked all these years. People won't be coming to your funeral, not to that extent.
She's saying he's a product of his time. Is he a product of the times?
Yes, he is a product of the times. And my son took ecstasy from one of the nightclubs that you helped run and died.
What, in Essex?
No, in Kent. But how do you know?
Run him in London and Essex.
But unfortunately, you see, the lad who supplied my son with the drugs had got his drugs in Southend.
Oh, right.
Which is Essex, I believe, isn't it?
We run all the clubs in Essex. Yeah,
and I believe you've making a film about your life.
I've not made a film, and the film's out. I've got no control over what people do. You know, they've made the film, Essex Boys.
Are you making any profit out of it?
I don't get nothing out of it.
You get nothing out of it?
In fact, I watched half of it and walked out because, you know, I've been through that, and you know, although I've got sympathy with you, I mean, Mr. Bits was on telly 3 weeks ago saying I killed his daughter. He holds me responsible for killing his daughter, but he's entitled to his views. But, you know, I feel sorry for you because you lost your son. But if you were someone into a park bar and drank 10 pints of lager and went and crashed his car and died, you wouldn't blame the barman. So you shouldn't blame the people who sold the drugs because he had a choice, do you know what I mean?
You were allowing things to be sold
and so did the management.
That kill.
And so did the management.
Yeah, but you were also allowing things that were sold to kill people.
Yes.
You know that ecstasy kills.
Well, some people, not many people.
Not many people don't, do they?
Not many people die of it, no.
Well, I think it's about 180 around
well, what's that
number.
in the scheme of things? It's not many.
I see. I see.
How many people die a drink a year? How many people die a drink a year?
And this man dares to talk about the Krays, and he says, does it matter that only 100 and whatever people die? That's what you said, Simon. That's what you said. We all heard you.
There are hundreds of families who are now suffering.
I agree with you. Would you want me to sit there and lie and say, well, no? I'm agreeing with you, right?
You have no thought.
I've got no
conscience?
No remorse, because I haven't done anything. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
when you see raves, right? Big raves like what you advertised on television.
2.5 months ago, my son went out to a nightclub on the Friday night.
Was it his choice to go?
It was his choice.
Was it choice to buy the drugs? Or was it his choice to take them?
Obviously, he has a free will. We are all born with a free will, but the availability of drugs in the present day and the peer pressure and the influence within the clubs from other people, I don't know why he took it. It was the biggest shock of my life.
Well, honestly,
the biggest shock. Could I please ask you, this film they've made...
The Essex Boys you're talking about.
Is it about you?
It's about my part. It's about all of us.
It's based on your book, Bernie.
Now, you said you walked out halfway in disgust.
I did, yeah, 'cause it's disgusting, yeah.
Right, so you were
The violence disgusted you.
Do you not have a say as to whether that film is released?
No say whatsoever. No whatsoever.
But the film isn't the issue here. We'll come on to that and whether you should be making money out of crime and whether crime actually pays. The issue here is Bernie being in control in one way or another of a drugs world that led to the death of your children.
That's
what we're talking about.
Do you also understand what the youngest...
Let me say something really important here. Yeah. You say that I'm responsible because I let people walk through that door, right, to sell drugs. The management knew what was going... A rave, right? They don't sell any alcohol at all they sell is water. You get 1,000 kids in there and they're sweating like rapists, right? Eyes bulging out their head.
Sweating like what?
Rapists. The sweat's pouring out.
The rapists sweat then?
And the sweat's pouring out. Their eyes are bulging. Everybody on this planet knows what they're doing in that place, right? When Leah died, right, I walked away from it, right? And I said they should shut the place down. The police shut the place down, right? Not on my say-so, but they shut it down. And then all these people who you look up to, the police, I'm not pointing at you personally, the police, the magistrates, and all these learned people, Said you can have your licence back on 3 conditions. 1, that you provide free water for the people. 2, you have chill-out areas. And 3, you have St John's ambulance men present in the nightclub. Why do you want St John's ambulance men in a nightclub?
Because they're selling the drugs. That's it. OK, you and I know...
They know that they're selling drugs.
We know why they're doing that. It's a judgment they're making about drugs.
They know they're selling drugs.
They're having to face reality. They're being pragmatic. It might be wrong, but they're not trying to encourage
They're not trying to encourage it.
They're not promoting them, selling them.
Nightclubs do with the flyers they distribute. They promote drug use.
As far as I can see, we're talking about a culture now that has been brought about by some years' worth of public debate. People have obviously generated this kind of attitude to go on a rave. So where did we all start letting our children go out? I've got 3 children. I don't believe any of them have ever been to a rave, but they go to nightclubs, so they're open to this kind of influence. I've never noticed them come back having taken drugs.
I'll be honest here, any girl, particularly girls,
in a nightclub,
years ago, spotty boys went up to them and said, do you want to dance around your handbag? But now they're going up to them and say, try this, try this. Don't let your daughter near them, don't let your son near them. Well, I'm being honest, right, and you don't like my honesty. I could be like one of these people who sit there and say, oh, I feel really bad about it, blah, blah, blah. I'm being honest about that culture. Keep them well away from it, because the authorities are letting drugs into those clubs.
My point is that somewhere or another along our social grind, people have allowed, in whether it's government or whatever part of society it is, an opportunity for such a venue to exist, so that they have an open opportunity to deliver this kind of behaviour.
If the truth be known, there are millions of dealers in this country. The way that it works is kids pass it to each other, and it's all a friend of a friend whose sister works in the supermarket, gets a bit for the weekend, all that sort of stuff. You get the pints in, I'll get the easy, and all that. That's the way that it works. Fact.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Towns, villages.
Now, is this a product of the change in the nature of crime and the different criminal culture, or is it the cause of it? Is it because are the kids getting this because the drugs are organised by organised crime, or is it organised crime actually fastening onto a fashion?
I think there was a shift away from drugs that were perhaps seen as very, very dangerous, the likes of heroin, etc., and the move towards synthetic drugs, which were seen as not so dangerous, if you like. Millions take them. It has to be said, statistically, few die, statistically, but they do die, and that's the reality. It's a sad reality.
If the ecstasy doesn't kill you, the culture will kill you.
So what's the change in the culture then? I mean, are you aware of today's crime, Tommy? Are you keeping up with events? I mean, in the sense that do you know how much the kind of scene they're talking about?
Yes, I do. Yes, I know.
Right. I asked that question because you are in a position, knowing what happened before then, to make a comparison. How would you say the nature of crime has changed?
I've been a criminal most of my life. I've been an armed robber and God knows what else. Most of my life, between us, I'm talking about criminals, between us, there are certain things we would do, there are certain things we would not do.
What wouldn't you do?
We wouldn't hit women. We wouldn't rape girls.
There was a code of honour.
I'm trying hard. But the jolly green joint keeps jumping in.
The jolly...
We didn't hit women.
Right, OK.
We very rarely beat our children. We chastise them. We chastise them.
How did you chastise them?
You got hold of them, you spoke to them, you put them to bed. And that was it.
Right. So
you
you're
didn't
saying...
punch the life out of them. I'm telling you what I'm saying. I'm telling you what I'm saying. This was our life. Certain things we would do, certain things we would not do. I live on a council estate now, at Downham. Nobody comes near my flat, nobody. Because I'll tear their heads off. That's why.
What did you say?
I said, I ain't surprised, you know what I mean?
I wouldn't come near your flat.
A lot of my
Tommy, how old are you? No, hang on, please, my friend.
A lot of my neighbours...
Please?
A lot of my neighbours...
I'll tell him you're interrupting me, then I'll send him up to you in a minute.
A lot of my neighbours are frightened to go shopping because when they come back, Their television is gone, their video is gone, and anything else is gone.
And you're saying that wouldn't have happened when you
No,
were...
it wouldn't.
Why wouldn't it have happened?
You didn't rob working-class people.
Oh, you did, Tommy. But after crime, if you actually look at the figures... I can remember when I was a Member of Parliament, who did they rob in my poorest days? They robbed each other. They didn't go and rob the rich. They stole the video from the council flat next door or down the road.
They were vermin. There's a hell of a difference. There's a hell of a difference between criminals and vermin.
You're making a distinction between professional criminals.
What I'm talking about is today's people, junkies, drug addicts, and all they want to do. They sell their mother. They'll take their sister out and sell her to somebody for a fix.
Are they not the victims, though? Are they not the victims? Those that use them don't have a lot of choice.
Why don't I stick a needle in my arm?
Is it not those that...
Come on.
Is it not those that
I'm telling you what you said.
You wouldn't hurt women and children.
I'm telling you what you said.
You wouldn't hurt women and children,
Yeah,
right? This is the old ethic, right?
Yeah.
But you'll murder their sons and murder their husbands, right? And then you say, modern criminals say ethics, I wouldn't hurt women and children, but they'll sell drugs and that destroys families.
You don't.
So where's ethics rubbish?
You don't murder their husbands and children for no reason.
Oh, that's all right.
You murder people for a reason.
Dry your eyes, Mrs. Smith, you deserved it.
Quiet. You said a moment ago you were an armed robber.
Yes.
That you carried a gun.
Yes.
You were tooled up.
Yes.
Why?
And they were all men. They were all men behind a drunk.
Of course, yeah. Why? Why, Tommy? Who were you going to shoot in that bank?
Anybody who tried to stop me.
Oh, but he wasn't a criminal. He was somebody's husband,
And they were all men who worked in the bank.
father. Did you shoot somebody's husband, father, brother, who wasn't a criminal?
Yes.
Oh, so that's a great code of honour, that is, isn't it?
He had no right trying to stop me, yes. Trying to stop me.
And you said, Helen, they had a code of honour? Is this the code of honour that you subscribe to?
There was a code of honour in the old days.
You could kill...
Crimes were different.
OK, and you killed the bank manager if he tried to stop you.
No, I didn't kill
but
the
you
bank
would have said
manager.
you
I
would
would have shot him, yes.
What about if it had been a woman cashier behind the counter? He'd have shot her.
She wouldn't have tried to stop me.
You'd have stopped him, wouldn't you?
Yes,
You'd have stopped. Look him in the eye.
You would have wanted to come home to bed with me.
Jean?
No way.
Yeah.
So what if it's Jean? She's got a little bottle, that woman, I'll tell you.
Well, I wouldn't go into her bank.
You wouldn't have known. She'd have said, you're not having my money. She'd have stood there, wouldn't you? Tell him. Tell him.
What gives you the right to go in with a gun anywhere and threaten people and not expect to be...
What?
to be stopped? Why do you think that you have this right, God-given right? You haven't got it, you've got a gun.
Decency speaking.
Right? And
You've
you
got
think
some right
that
talk about
gun-
decency. You're sending junkies into the club and you're talking about decency.
I'm not trying to defend my past. You know
I'm not defending mine. I'm telling you the truth. What I would do and what I wouldn't do.
Listen to her.
You've been trying to learn Are you another... Hang on, you lot. Phew. I'm glad I weren't in the bank when he walked in with a gun.
You'd still be there now.
The argument would have been arguing about how much money you want, what you're going to do. You're another one of those that believe...
Another one of what? Another one of what? Just now,
code of honour.
Just now I tried to talk to you. You waved me down. Right now you want me to talk, I'm going to talk. I used to work...
Well, you don't have to if you don't want to.
Well, I'm going to now.
Go on, then. Make my life easy, for goodness sake.
Well, I will do. I can talk just as well as you. And listen to me. I've been a professional entertainer all my life and I've spent 20 years in the Special Forces. I know about killing. I know about gangsters. I worked for the Krays. I worked for a lot of villains. They respected me. They never got me involved in anything they'd done. And I respected them for what they were. They never touched me. I'll tell you something now. I've got 12 children. I've got 25 grandchildren and 6 great-grandchildren. I wouldn't let my 25-year-old daughter go to a nightclub. I wouldn't let them go after 6 o'clock at night. Old age pensioners can't walk the street. They can't come down in my pub and have a drink because they're frightened, yeah? I'll tell you what the code of honour was then. You did not take a liberty with someone else's wife. I'm talking to you, listen.
I'm listening.
They did not take liberties
I
with
thought you
someone
were pointing at
else's wife.
Tommy.
And don't we look alike, by the way? And yeah, you do not take liberties with someone else's wife. You do, all right, you're a drug dealer. That's your business,
drug
mate.
dealer. I just said I wasn't a drug
Doesn't
dealer.
matter.
You
What
would
have you
like
got?
to do
There's a
that.
man sitting down here who got paid a lot of money to defend the Krays. He got paid for it.
On
You
legal
talk
aid.
about glamorising. In show business, we do love the clap and the applause. It makes us feel good. I've done my apprenticeship in the roughest pubs in the East End of London, and my friend, people like you, used to come in there and drink half the time as well, yeah? And I've done my apprenticeship in
But it wasn't a crime for the policeman to have... Oh, it might have been on duty to have...
Oh, yes, it is
What do you
a crime.
think of all
No,
this?
I haven't finished yet.
You have finished.
There is a
You have
code of
pause for
conduct
breath,
that
then.
isn't here today.
Right.
There's no... I see a 4-year-old kid last week in Tesco's kicking his mother because she wouldn't buy... What's that kid going to be when he's 15 years old?
What would you
You what?
He kicks a load of old codswallop.
Why do you think that?
Well, I come from Bethnal Green. I was born in East End of London. And I can remember as I was 12 when war was declared, and my mum used to have to... That's why the streets were safe, because the houses there, they had nothing to be stolen from. My mum used to pawn her wedding ring Monday morning to get food for us kids. So the Krays couldn't come and hold them up because they had bloody nothing to give them.
What is it?
When we got bombed, the first people around here were the police and the fire brigade, and they used to rob them. The police used to go in the jewellers and get all the gold.
Every Monday morning.
Don't shout at each other. You can't hear either. Let Bill respond.
Every Monday morning, the lady's right. They used to line up at the pawn shops.
So did I.
The Craigs had everything.
No, they didn't have
yes, they
everything.
did.
They didn't
Where
have
is all the money
everything.
to stay in the
They
Norwich
didn't
hotel
have
then to die
everything.
in?
They're not here.
Where's the money?
All you're doing is talking about people who are dead. They're not here to defend
criminals,
themselves.
they are thugs, and they be glorified by people like yourself.
Should we be making money, Steve, out of these criminals? Oh, you too! Oi! Should you be making money out of crime, Steve?
We've discussed this, across this earlier on. I mean, the bottom line is the Kray name's marketable. It's a marketable name. You look at the name, and it's a name which stands out. It's a strange name. I was 15-year-old at school when I was influenced by it. I remember as being a 10-year-old, I remember seeing Ronnie and Reggie Kray coming out of a prison van to attend their mother's funeral in 1982. And I managed to, a strange set of affairs, pass my English exam by reading John Pearson's book, Profession of Violence. Now, I had an interest, strange interest. I know when you're at 15, 16 years of age, you're at an impressionable age. I passed a percentage of my English exam on that and decided to write to the twins. I got letters back. Obviously, they had a lot of time to spend writing to somebody like me, but I believe they had a lot of people who used to write to them on a regular basis. I kept up the pen-pal relationship, and eventually I started, visiting both Ronnie and Broadmoor and Reggie, who was at the time in Gartree. And I don't regret it for 1 minute. I still don't know and can't explain to anybody here or the public watching why I got involved with them.
What was the fascination?
I don't know. I mean, I remember the image. I remember the still images.
You must have analysed it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was naive at the time. Certainly, I mean, I'm 28 now. As I've come forward, I've managed to take the goodness out of it. I met the twins and Charlie as rehabilitated prisoners. Obviously, both Ron and Reg. Ron was obviously in a mental institution. Reg was, in a succession of prisons. Charlie was a free man, and I took a lot of good out of those, out of the three people. Ronnie and Reggie had both spent over 20 years in prison, and they were changed men. Obviously, Sir Ivan Lawrence is here in particular, Les Martin, people who knew the twins in the 60s. They'll have seen the change. I only ever knew them as the old gentlemen, the old granddads, if you like.
But you've written a book about them.
Yeah, at the moment I'm in the process of looking for a publisher for my book, The Krays, the Geordie Connection. Basically, I'm, talking about my experience. Mine comes from a different
Do you feel
angle.
comfortable exploiting criminals to make money?
I spoke to Charlie about it before. Before he passed away in April, and told him that I was putting a book together. I mean, at Ronnie's
I'm not worried
funeral,
about him.
Yeah.
I'm worried about perhaps their victims or other people.
It doesn't really I mean, it does concern them because obviously the Kray name will again be in the spotlight, but it doesn't concern them because it's not a rehash
You're
of
in
the
a
old
way
stories.
helping to contribute to their kind of myth or their fame or their glamorisation.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly don't deny that.
I work every day of my life with victims of crime, and I work with people who've had their children murdered, and time again...
What's that got to do with the Krays? Absolutely nothing to do with the Krays.
Their victims weren't somebody's child. Everybody is somebody's child. and I work with people, and some of the children that were murdered were 35. They still have a mother that mourns for them. And time again, we have people ringing him up. Hugh Collins in Scotland, the Krays, somebody's written a book. You know, we talked to a family in Scotland. They found out how their father was murdered by watching it on a television programme, and the murderer having his photograph taken at the graveside. You know, everybody wants to buy books about criminals. Will the same people that are at the funeral this afternoon, did they go to Sarah Pane's funeral?
It's a genre which, unfortunately, though, people are really interested in. That's why the merchandise I produced as a youngster, i.e. calendars.
But you did the merchandise. You did
I used to do a lot of the
T-shirts,
T-shirts, mirrors, cups, bags, you name it, tea towels, everything apart from toilet roll holders. People used to want to buy it, and it was a marketable avenue which I saw. That was the business I was in at the time, and it's something which I thought, well, at the end of the day, if people buy it, why don't you produce it? It happens. Charles Manson in America, there's people walking around with Charles Manson T-shirts on in this country.
Yeah, but it doesn't make it right.
It doesn't make it right, but if people are going to buy it, and the press are just as much to blame, because at the end of the day, talking about those obituaries that you were talking about before, Robert, why do it? Because those people know the obituaries about the Krays. People go and buy every paper.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't understand why they do it. I can't understand why they give it. Jean, can I ask Jean first? Sorry, Bernard.
Well,
I know you're a gentleman like Tommy.
Quite honestly, I don't think that anyone should make money out of crime.
No.
And all you're doing is encouraging other up-and-coming youngsters to go at it.
I can't agree with you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, all right, go on.
There's two reasons. I've got really bad news for you and really bad news for you. You saying that the Krays were reformed.
Who are you talking to?
Right?
Hang on.
Both
don't start Tommy off
the anger's
again.
on, you know what I mean? Reggie was involved in drugs while he was in prison, and in the sale of drugs in the clubs where I worked in. As you know, Charlie died serving a sentence for selling drugs, so don't give me all that. Oh,
I was innocent.
so the jury was wrong.
Leave it.
The next point, right?
No, these people fitted him up.
Right, well,
these people fitted him up.
Listen, Reggie Kray worked with us doing drugs. I've got tapes and everything of him, right? About selling drugs in this country. So don't tell me, because I know, you know what I mean?
OK.
Right?
We'll leave that.
Let me leave that for 1 minute,
yeah,
right? Leave that for 1 minute. Right, there's at least good reasons for writing crime books. I said Mr Betts accuses me of murdering his daughter. The men convicted of the Range Rover murders have protested and accused me of those murders. And so there's a good reason for me to put my side of the story. No. Because I am not guilty of either of them offences, right?
But if you're not guilty, you don't have to write a book.
The Essex Boys story. What's the name of the title of your book?
Essex Boys.
It is the Essex Boys, which is the same as the film.
Same as
that is actually... I mean, that does glamorise it, Bernie.
It doesn't glamorise it.
If
you read my book, it's not glamorised.
I know you're dissociating yourself from the film. I saw a clip of the film. We were actually going to show the film, and the reason we haven't showed clips of the film this morning is because you've actually told my editor that you had nothing to do with it, you worked out, so we can't pin it on you, as it were. But if your book is anything like that film...
It's probably worse.
Well, that part of the film was talking about... Hang on. The part
some of my money's gone.
Bernie, does it say in your book, is the film, we're the Essex Boys, we have a code of honour, there are certain things you don't do, all that? Because that is glamorising criminality.
It makes a mockery of that. My book makes a mockery of it.
The money you make from the film...
How much money do you think you make out of it?
All right, well, if you make a tenner, will you put it towards helping kids that are hooked on drugs?
Of course you
will. No, you won't.
Because he's glamorising crime and he's making money.
If I don't write that book in my own words, a journalist like him will.
You just said you only wrote it to tell your side of the story.
I did, yeah. Which is important to me.
You didn't write it to make money.
Of course I made it to write money.
Exactly.
So it was both.
If I don't write it, a journalist will. And it's better in my words, because I was there, than his, who wasn't there.
Give the money to helping the kids that you affected.
Are you going to give your money what you earn?
I do. I do.
For you.
I put money into the charity. I run a charity.
You're a far better person than me. Good luck to you.
And I work to keep that going. So I do.
There's no justification for either criminals writing books to re-cash in on the crimes that they've done before, or other people writing books to cash in on their name. And if anybody's watching this today, and there might be one or two watching, they should not buy these books.
Victims can write books too.
But OK, but what about... Policemen write books too, yeah.
I don't think they should do either.
You don't think police? You shouldn't do.
No, I don't think the police.
So Robert Mark, the commissioner of Scotland Yard, as it was then, the Metropolitan Police, he wrote his autobiography. I'm sure another one. I know that because I actually reviewed it. But he wrote. He shouldn't be doing
two books, and he also advertised Firestone tyres. Now you might say that he was cashing in on his badge when he did that. Secondly, you've got to look at it.
no, Bill, no, come on. No, hang on. You might have a code.
No,
I've got a code.
criminals.
Please, Lynn. Hang on, Jamie. I've got a code too. And we're fair to everybody here. And we talk one at a time and we let people take their turn. You've had a good run, Bill, and you, Tommy. Really good run. I know he's spoken once, but he hasn't spoken as much as you. Hang on, Tommy, now, come on, please, play the game.
But it seems to me that it's market forces, and if there's a demand for these type of books, then it will be there. What are you going to have, censorship, and stop people selling books? I look at someone like...
Are you saying that because you're having to defend people like Sir Robert Mark and police like perhaps yourself? Have you written a book?
No, I haven't, no.
But you might.
I've contributed to a book, but not, but purely,
so
purely on an academic point of view, which I didn't get paid for.
OK, but you've got, in that case, you've got to defend him too, haven't you?
No,
because what's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander.
This is a matter of civil liberties and living in a market economy. It's free market and it's market forces. If people demand it and they want it, there'll be someone will supply it. I've got no problem with that. That's the society that we live in. No, I'm not talking about criminal offences. No, I'm not. I'm talking about censorship.
Jean?
And I don't believe in censorship.
Jean?
Well, Robert, I have a problem with that because I don't think that anyone who's been locked up for murdering someone should benefit in any way.
Exactly.
And I was in Central Station in Glasgow when our notorious Jimmy Boyle, another scumbag, his book was on the bookstand, and this man was standing beside me and he was leafing through it and he was going to hand it over to buy it when I said to him, "Are you going to buy that book?" And he said, "What's it to you?" And I said, "Well, I don't think you should be putting money in Jimmy Boyle's pocket. If you're going to buy it and he's going to give the money to victim support or someone, buy me, I'll buy it, I'll buy dozens." It doesn't happen. No. They get rich on it. I don't care how, Bernie, you're saying you don't get rich on it. You're still making money. And if you make a shilling...
But I was not locked up for anything.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
So, wait a minute. You had an argument with this man at the bookstall over Jimmy Boyle's book?
Yes.
And did he buy it?
No.
You stopped him buying it?
Yes, I stopped him buying it. We call her an enforcer.
You've been very voluble, but quite thoughtful. Very quickly, what do you think, how do we end, how do we deal with, what should we do about violent crime? I need you to tell me in 30 seconds. I know that's hard.
Be tougher.
You do have to be tougher, yeah. I mean, I went through the rigmarole where you go to court, you get fined, you get probation, you get community service, blah-de-blah-de-blah. And when you're only 12 time, you know you're going to prison. So it's no big shock. Maybe if you start the other way around, prison first, and then the other way round, you might have some results.
Well, I bet you... Tommy, we're at the end of the programme. No, I can't. We've got 2 seconds to go. Well, there's the expert. He told you, didn't he, how what we should do to stop criminals becoming criminals. Perhaps we should listen to them. Perhaps our politicians should listen to him more than they listen to the penal reformers. They say, don't they, that crime doesn't pay. Not quite true, that, is it? It seems to pay for the criminals and those who write books about them. Don't think it should pay for either, really, or to stop it. Take care of yourselves.
If you'd like to take part in a programme about affairs, call now on 0990 100 771. Are you having an affair? Have you or your partner had an affair in the past? Has it ruined your relationship, or will you give them a second chance? Did you have an affair for the excitement, for sex, or for revenge? Was it because you'd fallen out of love, or because you felt neglected? Has your affair led to a relationship, or was it a one-night stand? Call 2 if you can't say no to affairs.